Hey, welcome to Manila Updates TV. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The world awoke to breaking news. Philippines to file protest after a violent clash at sea. The story dominated every major network, with anchors urgently discussing the implications for regional peace and global stability. Overnight, a remote corner of the ocean had become the center of international attention. The headlines signaled a dangerous escalation in the South China Sea. Words like confrontation, standoff, and crisis flashed across screens and front pages, fueling anxiety from Manila to Washington, Beijing to Tokyo. The world watched, holding its breath, as the situation unfolded in real time. Before the official statements, there was chaos. Amateur footage captured the confusion and fear, shouts in the darkness, the scramble of boots on wet decks, the desperate calls for help over crackling radios. For those on the water, the crisis was not a headline, but a terrifying reality. In the pre-dawn of December 12, 2025, the FB Maria, a Filipino fishing boat, worked the waters near Scarborough Shoal. The sea was calm, but the air was thick with tension, as if everyone sensed that something was about to go terribly wrong. The crew, men from Zambales, risked everything to fish in their ancestral grounds. For generations, their families had depended on these waters for their livelihood, braving storms and uncertainty. But now, the threat was not just from nature but from men and machines. They knew the dangers, the looming presence of China Coast Guard ships. These vessels, bristling with authority and power, had become a constant shadow enforcing Beijing's sweeping claims over the sea. As dawn broke, a massive Chinese vessel appeared, moving straight for them. Its silhouette grew larger with every passing second, blocking out the rising sun and sending a chill through the crew. Captain Ricardo Santos watched anxiously, ordering his crew to brace for trouble. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his fear. He knew that a single wrong move could mean disaster for everyone on board. The Chinese ship's radio blared warnings in a foreign tongue, then a siren. Clear, you are not welcome. The message was unmistakable, echoing across the water, a stark reminder of the power imbalance at play. The Maria was dwarfed by the Chinese ship, now circling like a predator. The fishermen clung to their boat, feeling as small and vulnerable as the vessel itself, surrounded by steel and authority. The tension was suffocating. The fishermen were no longer just fishermen. They were unwilling actors in a global conflict. Each man wondered if he would see his family again, or if this day would end in tragedy. The sun rose, but its light only revealed the peril they faced. The golden dawn did nothing to dispel the fear. Instead, it cast long shadows over the deck, highlighting the gravity of the moment. The confrontation at Scarborough Shoal was about to become international news. Diplomats scrambled, governments issued statements, and the world's media converged, eager to capture every detail of the unfolding drama. The fate of the Maria's crew would soon echo far beyond these waters. Their ordeal would become a symbol of a much larger struggle, a fight for sovereignty, survival, and dignity in the face of overwhelming odds. The South China Sea was no longer just a fishing ground, it was a flashpoint. The world now watched, knowing that what happened here could shape the future of the entire region, and perhaps, the world itself. What began as a routine fishing trip quickly spiraled into a terrifying ordeal. The standoff between the Filipino fishermen and the Chinese Coast Guard escalated in mere seconds, tension thick in the salty air as the crew realized they were in grave danger. The China Coast Guard suddenly blocked the Maria's path, their imposing vessel looming over the much smaller fishing boat. Over loudspeakers, they barked orders, demanding the fishermen leave what they called Chinese waters, their voices cold and unyielding. Captain Santos, refusing to back down, argued fiercely that they were well within Philippine territory. But his words fell on deaf ears. The response from the Coast Guard was not negotiation, but force, swift and brutal. Without warning, water cannons erupted from the Coast Guard ship, slamming the Maria with relentless, crushing jets. The force of the water was overwhelming, battering the vessel and its crew. Windows shattered instantly, shards of glass flying across the deck. Equipment was torn away, swept overboard or smashed to pieces. Men were knocked off their feet, struggling to hold on as the deck became a torrent of chaos. The attack was deliberate and targeted. Crew members were hit directly by the high-pressure jets. Some were thrown violently against the railings, others pinned to the deck, several suffering serious injuries. Paulo's arm snapped under the force, leaving him writhing in pain. Elias was struck in the head, knocked unconscious as his crewmates rushed to his side, desperately trying to help. When the assault finally ended, the Maria was left crippled and adrift, its hull battered and its crew exhausted, battered both physically and emotionally. The Chinese ship lingered for a moment, watching the devastation they had caused, before turning away and disappearing into the horizon, leaving only wreckage behind. The fishermen were stranded, their boat wrecked beyond repair, their hard-earned catch ruined and forgotten on the bloody deck. With no way to call for help, survival became their only goal. The crew rationed what Wachaniar dry de Kilsuwin stum. Forbiarchumwadan, Aishan Mandurken, through in water they had left, signaling desperately to any passing ships, hoping for rescue. The South China Sea, once a source of life and livelihood, had turned violent and unforgiving, the waves now a constant threat to their battered vessel. As night fell, exhaustion and fear set in. The crew faced an uncertain future, haunted by the trauma of the attack and the daunting challenge of survival. But their ordeal was far from over. Soon, the world would hear their story, a story of courage, survival, and the harsh realities faced by those who dare to fish these contested waters. The return to shore was agonizing. Every mile felt endless, the battered boat creaking with each wave, the men silent, lost in their pain and fear. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over faces etched with exhaustion and dread. With a damaged engine, the Maria limped home over 2 days. The journey, which should have taken hours, stretched into a test of endurance. The crew took turns bailing water from the flooded hull, their hands raw and blistered, as the boat was towed inch by inch toward safety. Injuries were severe. Paulo's arm, Elias's concussion, others with cuts and bruises. Some men could barely stand, their wounds hastily wrapped in torn shirts. The physical pain was sharp, but it was the fear in their eyes that spoke loudest. But the psychological scars ran deeper. Nightmares haunted their sleep, and the memory of the attack replayed in their minds. The sea, once a source of life, now seemed a place of lurking danger. Captain Santos told reporters, "A storm has no malice. This was deliberate. They wanted to hurt us." His voice trembled with anger and disbelief, echoing the feelings of his crew. The men wondered if they'd ever feel safe at sea again. Their trust in the waters was shattered, replaced by anxiety and doubt. Would they risk their lives for their families once more? At the port, families' relief turned to horror at the sight of the battered crew and wrecked boat. Tears flowed freely as wives and children embraced their loved ones, grateful for their return, but shaken by the ordeal. Ambulances rushed the wounded away. The dock echoed with sirens and cries, as medics worked quickly to treat the most serious injuries. The community gathered, offering prayers and support. The Maria was a ruin, outriggers splintered, navigation destroyed, hull flooded. The boat that had fed so many families was now a symbol of loss and violence. Repairs would be costly, likely beyond the small cooperative's means. The men faced an uncertain future, unsure if they could ever afford to return to the sea. For these men, the attack threatened not just their bodies, but their entire way of life. Fishing was more than a job. It was their heritage, their identity, now under threat. Their story became a national outcry. News crews arrived, capturing the pain and anger of a community pushed to the brink. The Maria's crew put a human face on a geopolitical conflict. Their suffering was no longer just a headline. It was real, immediate, and deeply personal. Their pain forced the nation and the world to pay attention. Across the country, people watched in shock, demanding answers and justice for the fishermen. The fishermen's voices demanded action. They spoke not just for themselves, but for all who depended on the sea, calling for protection and accountability. The South China Sea dispute was no longer abstract. It had come home, leaving scars on real people, and forcing a nation to confront the true cost of conflict. News of the Maria's assault ignited outrage across the Philippines. Viral videos showed the violence, uniting the public in anger. The government summoned China's ambassador, demanding accountability and compensation. President Marcos Jr. announced a new legal case against China, focusing on the use of force against civilians. Allies like the US and Japan condemned the attack, supporting a rules-based order. Manila released evidence, medical reports, damage assessments, to rally global support. The Philippines drew a line. Aggression would no longer be met with silence. China's response was swift and defiant. Beijing claimed the Maria was illegally fishing in Chinese waters, ignoring warnings. The Coast Guard, they said, acted professionally, using water cannons as a standard tool. China's narrative, defending sovereignty, not aggression. State media portrayed the incident as justified law enforcement. Beijing rejects the Philippines' EEZ claims and the 2016 tribunal ruling. The legal clash at the heart of the conflict remains unresolved. The Maria's ordeal was not unique. Filipino fishermen have long faced harassment, shadowing, ramming, water cannons. Incidents have escalated, part of China's strategy to assert control without open war. Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia have reported similar aggression. China's goal: normalize its presence, erode others' rights, one incident at a time. The Philippines framed the Maria attack as part of a deliberate campaign. By highlighting the pattern, Manila seeks global support against systematic violations. The echoes of past clashes make the Maria's story resonate worldwide. At the core is a clash between international law and raw power. The Philippines relies on UNCLOS, which grants rights to its EEZ, including Scarborough Shoal. The 2016 Hague ruling invalidated China's 9-dash line, affirming Philippine rights. China rejected the ruling, insisting on historical claims and enforcing them with force. On the water, might often trumps law. The Maria's crew believed in legal protection. The Coast Guard enforced power. This conflict tests whether rules or strength will govern the seas. If law is ignored here, what stops others from doing the same elsewhere? The world must decide shared rules or the will of the strong. The stakes go far beyond the South China Sea. The South China Sea is a global crossroads. 1/3 of maritime trade passes through. Disruption here could shake the world economy. The region holds vast oil and gas reserves, fueling competition. For the US and allies, freedom of navigation is non-negotiable. US Navy patrols challenge China's claims. China sees them as provocations. The risk of military miscalculation is real. The Maria's plight is a microcosm of a larger struggle. The outcome will shape global rules for decades. Fishermen like the Maria's crew are pawns in a high-stakes game. Their presence asserts Philippine rights but exposes them to danger. China sees them as part of Manila's strategy, targeting them to intimidate and drive them out. The fishermen are caught, encouraged to fish, but left unprotected. China's maritime militia blurs the line between civilian and state action. The risks are borne by ordinary people, not soldiers. The fishermen are not collateral. They are the intended targets. Their struggle is at the heart of the fight for maritime dominance. The Maria's story provokes outrage, but demands deeper understanding. This is not a simple tale of good versus evil. The conflict is rooted in history, pride, and strategic interests. Quick escalation helps no one, least of all the fishermen. Sustainable solutions require informed dialogue, not blind nationalism. International pressure and diplomacy offer the best hope for peace. The Maria reminds us global politics have real consequences for real people. Our role is to advocate for rules, respect, and empathy. The fishermen deserve to work without fear. Their hope for peace should be a hope we all share.